take a seat. My name's Jeremiah. What's your name? Well, lovely to meet you. And based on our phone call yesterday, that you were in the market for a therapist. Is that correct? Wonderful. Totally understand. And I think it's very. I think finding the right. Finding the right therapist is incredibly important. And I do not think it is a one-size-fits-all situation. Yeah. Well, there are so many factors that go into a productive therapist-client relationship. First and foremost, this may sound kind of weird, but you have to like me. And for whatever reason, some people don't like me. Could be because, I'm a guy, and some people are looking for a female, or maybe they're looking for a non-binary therapist, or, whatever spectrum of qualifications folks might have for wanting one type of therapist over another, I think is basically valid. I can't make you like me, and I can't make you trust me. That just has to be something that you and I build that kind of trust together. Yeah. Well, how about this? Let me start the session here the way I start my normal therapy sessions, okay? And we'll kind of go from there, and you can, of course, ask any questions you like. And I'll answer them as openly and as honestly as possible. So let's start like this. Go ahead and put your feet flat on the floor with me here, okay? And if you like, you can place your hands on your knees and close your eyes for a moment. Let's get present to the room that we're in, okay? And just notice how the room feels. All right? Okay, and let's take a nice calming breath together, shall we? Nice deep breath in the nose and out the mouth. Go. I can already tell that feels better for me. Can we do one more of those? Yeah. Let's do one more. Nice deep breath. We're gonna think about inhaling positivity and calm and peace. And we're gonna exhale negativity, exhale anxiety, and so forth, okay? Alright, take a deep breath. And exhale. Wonderful. Okay. And as I said a moment ago, just check in with your body right now and notice any places you may be feeling extra tension. Maybe you feel tension in your chest, or maybe you experience tension like many people in their shoulders. I personally tend to get a lot of, I hold my stress down here in my lower back, and that's just something that I've dealt with since I was a young man, like 16, I think, or I was 16 or 17, and I was, do you you mind if I tell you a quick story? So, we were at a philosophy conference. I know, that was an interesting dude. But we were at this philosophy conference in the summertime. And one of the fun little things they did is they basically had like a show and tell, kind of at the end, like just a chance for folks to show whatever they wanted. It was very incredibly low key. And this was the second time we had been to this philosophy conference, and my dad and I decided to write a short play about his experience that I could relate to of him, basically getting disowned by his own father, which it's sad and funny at the same time. Like, what does it mean for a parent to disown their kid? In the case of my dad, he had left studying engineering at the University of Colorado and decided he wanted to transfer and become a minister, a theologian. And for whatever reason, that was unacceptable by my grandparents. And they got in a big fight about it. And my grandpa, ridiculously, is like, if you do this, I'm gonna disown you. And anyway, my dad was like, oh yeah? Try me. So my dad goes off to seminary school. And, the rest is history. So, I got distracted there, a little sidebar. But yeah, parents do all kinds of crazy things, they'll say crazy things, and in the end, my dad did not stay disowned, whatever goofiness that is. But anyway, they worked it out in the end, and, all was well. But yeah, parents and people, they say and we do crazy things sometimes. But okay, let's get back to noticing our bodies here for a moment, okay? And noticing stress, and oh, that's right, so that's why I was telling you the story of my back, my stress. And so we were writing this little short play about that event, and I got so nervous to perform this because I didn't feel like I had my lines memorized. I didn't feel like I was prepared, and I got so worked up and stressed about it that my lower back, I wasn't even, forget what I was doing, but all of a sudden my lower back, I felt it go like it was weird. And I think if I psychoanalyze myself, what that is my body. So if I'm feeling stress and I'm feeling overwhelmed, my body, if it gets too much, my body says, this is too much of a burden to bear. You can't handle this, and let's just take away the options, shall we? And my back will go out, and then I can barely move, and it's very, very painful. And all that is to say is that, we all deal with stress and anxiety and in different ways. Yeah. And, just like to share with you, some of my things, because I want you to get to know me. There are certainly some things about my private life that it would be very inappropriate to share with you, but I also want you to know that I'm just not a very closed person, I feel like for a patient and a therapist, for me and you to really be effective, is that the only way for you to truly trust me is if you kind of know me. And if I can be very forthright with you about my own journey at times and my own struggles, I hope that will help you. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to take a few notes here. So what would you like to get out of therapy? Like what drew you to seeking a therapist in the first place? So, feeling of overwhelm. Yeah. Okay. I'm feeling some depression. Okay. Okay. Well, I definitely want to get into that. Depression, overwhelm. Can I ask, are you in a relationship right now? Do you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, partner? Okay. Is that something is that something that, well, some people want to be in a relationship. And understandably, humans, we are social creatures. And some people are in relationships, but the relationships are genuinely toxic. They're not benefiting either person, and they can kind of, certainly devolve into abusive. And that can be emotional, it can be physical. And honestly, which one's worse is kind of up for debate. But, we certainly don't want to be in anything that is abusive or stifling or suppressive or anything that would be holding you back. So, yeah, I believe that the relationships we choose, my goal is that those relationships are all very powerful. And even the relationships we don't choose. What do you mean, Jeremiah? Well, I mean our parents. Because the reality is, we don't get to choose our parents. We don't get to choose our families. It's what we're born with. And our parents, of course, are our first relationship. Our mothers specifically it's the first human that we get to know and love. And there is a huge spectrum of where we're born. Some people are born into loving, stable families. Some people are born into chaos, a lot of chaos and anxiety and stress. And you're given the hand you're dealt. And, my parents, I like to think that I come from a pretty, I hate to use the word normal, kind of traditional. I come from a traditional Midwestern home. My dad was in the military. After he did the seminary service, he eventually left the ministry, joined the Air Force, and ended up completing his degrees in aeronautical and astronautical engineering. And I was basically a military brat. It's pros and cons. But one thing that my parents, we used to always joke about, is that they never wanted to, they wanted to be sure to, emotionally scar us enough such that we would never be denied the joys of therapy. This is a family joke, of course. They were never intentionally trying to emotionally hurt myself or my brother, but it's gonna happen, and there's nothing you can do about it as a parent. Like, you are going to emotionally in some way. And the reason it's so unavoidable is because of something called our inner child. Now, you may have heard of this inner child. I think it was kind of popularized in like pop psychology in the 80s and the 90s. There was this, so when I was a kid, my parents were really big into a psychologist named John Bradshaw. And John Bradshaw was actually a pretty cool dude. And I believe he wrote the book The Dance of Intimacy. That was somebody else. But I remember Mr. Bradshaw would often talk about, healing your inner child and things like that. And I think he was completely onto something, because I've done more work and research into this area of, like what causes us to behave the way we behave as adults. And one incredibly reliable method that I've found is, if you go back, if we can do this during a session if you would like, and I highly recommend it. We'll take a good moment to get very relaxed, and you're gonna think back to when you were a small child. It's probably at the ages of 4, 5, or 6, maybe 7 or 8, but oftentimes as young as 4 or 5. And there is likely to be some big event that occurred at that time that for you was a huge event. It was this seminal moment, and it will likely be for your parents almost completely forgettable. It may have just been a tiny little blip on their radar, but for you and for me, it was a huge deal. It was like how we made it mean so much. And I've shared this particular story with several clients before, just so you get an idea of what I mean. So my moment was when I was like 5. We were on this family road trip, and my dad wanted to go explore a mine shaft that he saw off in the distance, some little hole in a cliff, and I wanted to come along, and he said, "No, Maya, it might be too dangerous," and he ended up taking my brother instead. And I made that mean, little 5-year-old Jeremiah, made that mean that I wasn't trustworthy, that, my brother was better than me, that my dad loved my brother more than me. I made this whole laundry list of of statements that in my little 5-year-old logic brain were true. Like, this is true. And I will tell you, unwinding that has been a life's journey. I am telling you, it's weird. It is so weird. The decisions that are made by us when we are little kids, those little decisions about who we are, that are from, the literal logical brain of a child, will stick with us throughout our lifetimes. And one of the goals of therapy, that for me, of course, has just been like getting in touch with that, learning that it happened, that I can accept it, that I can love that little child, that I can love my parents, and I've had the amazing opportunity of actually talking about this moment, with my mom and dad, and I'm very lucky in that they were incredibly open, loving. Thankfully, my family has always been very into psychology and therapy, and been studying therapy since I was, I don't know, 10, I think, was when I started getting into psychology, 11. But I was very lucky to have a family that could just listen, you know, and hear what I said and not get defensive and just tell me, we're so sorry, you know, Jeremiah, we love you, and your mom and I, you know, we had no idea, but, you know, we love you and your brother just the same. And, you know, it was quite the little process. But I'm committed that you and all of my patients get to experience those kinds of moments with their families. Because like I said, you know, families are tough, man. Families are... you're kind of stuck with them, for lack of a better word. And we can try to wish it away. You can't. We get the family we get. And I believe that when we improve and we start working on ourselves and letting go of the emotional baggage that could lead to, you know, overreaction, passive aggression, which is incredibly common, you know, withholding kind of low-key bitterness, and having that come out as snarky or mean or, you know, putting our family members down. And it's so common because most of us are walking around with quite a bit of unresolved pain, anger, and resentment. And what's amazing, though, and this is my experience of this again and again and again, both with myself and with my clients, is that when we grow emotionally and we start to get to the point where we're really analyzing how we're communicating and going, okay, why am I reacting the way I'm reacting to something somebody said? Why am I triggered by this? Am I really triggered by that? Or is it something else that I'm not dealing with? And we stop, we take a breath, and we start analyzing the cost-payoff relationship. And the gist of that is, whenever we're getting into an argument or a fight, two things are usually happening. One, we are trying to look good, and two, we're trying to make the other person wrong. And that is simply the case with 99% of arguments. We're trying to look good, we're trying to make them look bad, and we're trying to be right. That's another one. And when you find yourself doing that, which we all do, I still do it, everybody does it, it is literally unavoidable. You know, the goal, of course, would just be to be completely, you know, Buddhist and just meditating by a babbling brook. But the reality is, we're humans. We have families. We have friends. We have colleagues and coworkers. They are going to trigger us. They are going to say something snarky and like backhanded or passive aggressive. And we are going to have the reaction of, well, actually, and we're going to right at them back. And then now there's a fight. and now they're trying to be right and look good, and you're trying to be right and look good. And in the end, nobody looks good. Nobody is right. There's just nothing but breakdown, and nothing is solved. But if in those moments when you're getting triggered, you can stop and go, okay, what I heard you say is this, and what I'm making that mean is X, Y, and Z. I'm making it mean that, you don't respect me, you don't care, you don't like me, you don't trust me, I'm making it mean that. Is that what you meant? Often they'll come back and be like, no, it's actually not what I meant. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. What I really meant was. But as soon as one person is the mature one, it's like the rising tide that lifts all boats. Suddenly, everybody around you can start communicating at a much higher level because you changed the room. Yeah. And then we can further analyze our breakdowns and go, okay, what is the payoff of me right now being right in this argument? What's the payoff? And the payoff is usually, well, I get to look good, I get to be right, I get to make somebody else look bad. Pretty lame payoffs, if we're being honest. And then we can ask, well, now what's the cost? And the cost of being right is usually disconnection, lack of love, loss of affinity, loss of, connection, love, family, friendship, partnership. Basically all the things that matter are on the table for the cost. And the payoff is usually something pretty minor. Yeah. So, those are my goals with our sessions, is that we learn together, that we grow together and elevate all of the relationships that we have with our families, with our partners, with our friends, and our colleagues and co-workers. Yeah. So, if you would like me to be your therapist, I would truly be honored. I think we can have some amazing breakthroughs together. Yeah. So, would you like to schedule another session? Oh, well, wonderful. Does this time work for you? Yeah? Okay. So let's schedule this time next week. Yeah? And I really look forward to getting to know you better. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can already tell you're pretty cool. Well, why do I say that? Because you are taking a very scary leap. It's very scary to, open the Pandora's box of our past and our emotions. It's going to be very scary for people. Vulnerability, for many people, is borderline terrifying. And it takes a lot of courage to step over this threshold into self-examination. Yeah, I forget who said it, but maybe it was Sheldon Kopp, who wrote a great book called If You Meet the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him. I know, it's an amazing title. If You Meet the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him. And it's a book all about his journey as a psychotherapist and his clients. And I believe one of his quotes is, the unexamined life is not worth living. Or maybe he borrowed that quote from somebody else. But I have to agree. I don't think the unexamined life is worth living. Because because there's so much richness and love and joy to experience. And the way we do it is by getting out of our own ways and letting go of the negativity and the traumas of our past, healing the wounds in relationships, and forging powerful, amazing new ones. Okay? Awesome. Well, thank you for coming and seeing me. It's been really cool getting to know you a little bit, and I look forward to our next session. Okay. All right. Have a wonderful day.